Talking about comics that probably should have ended a little earlier. What are concepts that were really cool but overstayed their welcome? Going into that. Hey, this is Perch, and gonna talk a little bit about some comics that just didn't. They were really good ideas at the time, and then one thing or another happened, and they just kind of overstayed their welcome. The concept was not strong enough to keep it going. And yet the comic went and blazed ahead for another 40 issues anyway. And what are some concepts like that? Well, I'll give a couple from my example. And I'm sure everybody has some. So some of these answers may surprise you a little bit, but one idea is one comic that really strikes me, and I remember thinking about it a lot at the time, was Secret Wars. The first comic, the Secret Wars original, if you will, that comic was pretty novel. We had the whole battle world concept, and we had this kind of mysterious force come show up and get these heroes to fight, and kind of this. We got some new dynamics about it. It was a good story. It was a story that I think as I recall from interviews at the time, Marvel was both sure would work and also thought it might flop at the same time because it was kind of heavily inspired by toys that were playing into that, and it also had to juggle this idea that the Secret Wars would go on for 12 months, and then the comics would be caught up with these items later, like hey, the Thing. Why isn't the Thing with the team anymore? Or what's this costume Spider-Man's got? Or what happened with the X-Men, and Colossus and Kitty's relationship, and just some of these kind of things that just happened, and then you had to read Secret Wars to kind of catch up. But Secret Wars read a little bit, or it was intended to read a little bit more all ages friendly. It was some good old fashioned kind of hero battling and things like that. And I remember talking to people years later who said, we were making a comic for kids, but we were surprised because the reaction from the adults was so strong. People really liked it, and they thought the content was the comic was really really strong. Well, um, the like I said, the concept was good, but then they took probably the least interesting thing of Secret Wars, which was the Beyonder, which was really the Beyonder, and this kind of mystical force was really just a vehicle or a mechanism to get all these heroes and villains to be in one place and fighting, kind of in this battle world kind of scenario that again was kind of geared toward kids. And they decided to take this concept and do Secret Wars 2, which was going to be all about the Beyonder and kind of him coming to Earth and the superpower being there. And you had Owen Reese, and you had a couple different things happening. But it was just that was a classic example of a comic whose concept completely overstayed its welcome. It was just enough to be in Secret Wars 1. I mean, arguably the least interesting part of the first Secret Wars was the Beyonder's presence. He was just there to kind of set the stage, and they did have him kind of manifest himself there toward the end of the series. So having a whole new limited series kind of based off that concept was just not what anybody wanted to see, and that just didn't go well. I have lots of memories of Volcana um, just running around in her underwear in Secret Wars 2. Do the rest of you remember that? It's just these awkward, weird, kind of dumb scenes. I just I don't know. That's one of my memories. There wasn't a good. I mean, it wasn't good dumb. It's just dumb. Anyway, that was one. I think another comic, a recent one that kind of overstayed its welcome, and I don't, I'm a big fan of Rick Remender, but it feels like on a couple different fronts, both Deadly Class and Low and Black Science, all titles I enjoy quite a bit. But the enjoyment has definitely diminished for books like Deadly Class and Low and uh, and Black Science. I mean, Black Science I think was a really cool concept of multiverse and Grant McKay and kind of this arrogance that led to this disaster. I mean, there's a lot of really kind of interesting things that were going on in that comic, and it it seemed to lose steam. It had a lot of momentum. I mean, that was a book I would pick up kind of made sure to pick up right away when it was out. And really, just I would read that one first. Kind of to one of my earlier videos, what are the books to read first? I'd read that one first. I enjoyed kind of the dynamic. I enjoyed the world. I enjoyed the super sci-fi element to it. I enjoyed all that stuff a lot. And then I don't remember at what point it was. Maybe when Grant McKay kind of gave away his intelligence, or his he Chan, and they showed up on a world, more recently, where they were getting therapy, and just that whole, there's just some point where I lost the plot. And meaning I was still following the plot, I was still following the story, and I still enjoyed the idea behind it, but it's like it's just like it meandered too much. It's kind of what I think a lot of people have said about the Batman Catwoman Tom King run, of just it kind of it lost the plot again. It is it we spent, it was when they had the nightmares story arc, and they had Batman getting tortured and he's having nightmares, and it's like, and I don't know what's going on. People didn't know what was going on anymore. It just seemed to kind of just wander around a bit. I think that's a definite example of a comic that kind of lost the plot, so to speak. So that's one. Um, there's a lot of really cool ideas, and I think the problem that happens with comics is that some ideas should end. Like, you have a good story, and it is a good story, but you don't need to keep going. It's okay. You can call it a day, and I think there's this pressure sometimes with comics that are successful to just keep going, keep getting that check. Especially, it always feels like in some cases the people leading comics and the publishers do not have good self control, in that they know that the title does not have, is not an ongoing series of a book, but they get a little bit of success with it. It's more successful than some of the regular books they're publishing. So they're like, okay, we want you to drag this story out. And imagine, I don't know if any of you have read Midnight Nation. So I think that's a really cool, Gary Frank book that, as I recall, came out mostly on time. But maybe I'm that's it's too soon for jokes like that. But imagine if that book, which was very popular, that book picked up quite a good following. Imagine if they whoever be Image, or turned to J. Michael, I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, and Gary Frank, and said, all right, we're gonna need you to go ahead and make this a 36 issue series. So as our main character kind of travels across in this foreign world to him, he's going to need to spend 10 issues in Kansas. We need to derail him from his journey, and he's just going to hang out there for 10 issues and then just do nothing. I think that's what happens to a lot of comics. They overstay their welcome. They have a really good idea, but they're not disciplined enough to just call it a day and have the limited series, or have the story be what it is. And I think what's funny is it is very short term thinking, because I think you can take a title and you can run it into the ground, you can destroy its popularity, and thereby destroy a little bit of its future sales potential and other things. In some cases, I actually, some people have said this about Why the Last Man, that it was a title that just went on way too long. And I don't agree. I think that book is definitely separated by very clear and distinct arcs. I think DMZ has a much, I think you could argue that one overstayed its welcome far more than Why the Last Man. But definitely some of these books that are big concept books, like All the Men Are Dead Except for One, books like that, I think they do have a tendency to take that one big concept and then drag things out. Then it becomes filler time for a long time. And I think you have a lot more valuable as a publisher, a lot more value as a publisher, if you take a book and you have a great concept and you do it well and you end the title and you promote the hell out of that creative team, like the amazing writer, artist, the amazing creative team that did, blank, as coming back for a brand new story. Now, granted, I guess that creates more pressure for the writer to, come up with a new story. But at the same time, I think is it harder for a writer to come up with a new concept, or is it harder for them to just milk the same concept and try and fill for time over and over? I think the filling for time is harder and a bigger problem, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. What about you? What books have you felt like they were trundling along okay, and then you're really invested in the concept, really liked it, and then it just 30 issues later, you're like, okay, this whatever magic used to be here is gone now. So let's cut. What do you have there? Would love to know what books you're thinking about, what titles you have in mind. Leave in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think? Is it better for a title to end on top as a short run and go on to do something else, or would you rather see that creative team just go on forever? If John Byrne was still doing She-Hulk today, would it probably be too much, right? I mean, a lot of people remember that run fondly, but imagine if 30 years later it's still going. Would you be into that? I don't know. Probably not. There's so many jokes people can write. I think it does come to an end at some point. Anyway, let me know below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, tell a friend. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Ask me questions like this one, and I'm happy to talk to it. And thanks for listening.